Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to actually talk to you about some toxic relationship habits. In fact, this habit that I'm going to talk to you about, almost 90% of all divorces literally start with it. And you probably might be experiencing it right now. You might be a victim of it, or you yourself might be an initiator of this really terrible, bad, not just bad, toxic, destructive relationship habit. Well, what it is, keep listening and I'll tell you in a while. Have you ever been in a relationship where you think that you can do absolutely nothing good? Your spouse, your wife, your husband, your partner seem to be always on your case. Nothing you do seem to be right. And it's almost wears you out, tears you down. I listened to a situation just the other day when two parties, two wonderful people, were going to absolutely call it quits. They were going to throw in the romantic towel. They were going to, and it had nothing to do with cheating. It had nothing to do with finances. It had to do with this thing that I am going to be sharing with you in a while. And it is spelled, should I spell it out for you? It is spelled C-R-I-T-I-S-M. Quittism. Actually, I spelled it wrong. I can't believe I did that. It is spelled C-R-I-T-I-C-I-S-M. Criticism. Now, first of all, what is criticism? We'll discuss that in a minute. What are the impacts of criticism? How can you tell you're a critic? And most of us are. In fact, our society is laden. It is saturated. It is overwhelmingly punctuated with criticism. And it is like the cancer of relationship. In fact, John Gottman, a famed relationship researcher, found out that all other problems usually stem from criticism. I came across a very powerful article, and I would really like to share some parts of the article with you, by a guy called Stephen Studsley. Stephen Studsley is, I think he's an unsung hero of relationship research. I know John Gottman is the star. He's probably called the father of romantic relationship research. But Stephen Studsley is another brilliant light in uncovering the dynamics and the science of relationship. So let me go to an article that I found by Stephen Studsley. This thing can actually kill a perfectly good relationship. And he starts by saying criticism is the most destructive behavior in relationship, as stonewalling, defensiveness, and contempt tend to actually follow from it. In other words, and in fact, usually there is what I would call the hidden initiator of criticism: complaining. There's nothing that dampens the soul like constant complaints. And from complaints, if the complaint isn't heard, it snowballs into criticism. And then if criticism doesn't do its job, it actually festers into resentment, silent resentment, just in the back burner, like a silent relationship killer, like hypertension for the physical health world. And eventually it tumbles into a toxic cancer of relationship called contempt. Let's simply explore some of the things in this article that Stephen Studsley, he's one of the guys I really admire in this area of relationship. He just has a way of decoding and distilling it in a way that is surprisingly simple and easy to grasp. Okay, so we know that it predicts divorce with almost 90% accuracy, and it's one of the most predictive disasters in relationship. If your relationship is saturated with criticism, you are headed down a one-way road, almost going to hell in in a handbasket, as they would say, if something isn't done about it quickly and swiftly. So, criticism is destructive to relationship when it is about personality or character rather than behavior. And that is the essence of criticism. Criticism literally attacks the person, the personality, the character of the person. It judges the person, and it is laced with shame. It is laced with things that would mitigate the integrity, corrode the integrity of the person. It's filled with blame. And it's not really focused, it's not solution focused. It is focused on destruction, annihilation of the person. And it's based on an attitude that many people have. It is either my way or the highway. It's very belittling, invalidating. Right? So it normally starts out very low key, and over a period of time, it spirals downward or escalates into resentment, like I said, and eventually it gets sometimes into anger and fights, verbal fights at first, and in some cases, even physical fights. Are you a critic, or are you a victim of a person who constantly criticizes you? If it is that you have experienced a lot of criticism, please tell us your experience in the comments below. All right. Now, I want to play a short clip by Rene Rodriguez, and it really highlights the essence of what criticism does. Let's look at the video, and we will be back in a minute. Just a short clip.
The critical environment triggers stress, shuts the creative parts of our brain down, and we just don't engage as much.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Criticism causes stress. And in fact, when we are criticized, we find it very difficult to be positive. And what many people don't know, that when you give criticism, the person who is being criticized begin to criticize you, begin to look at the bad, destructive elements and parts in you. So it's like, you know, tit for tat, butter for fat. You kill my dog, I kill your cat. Now, what is the antidote? How do you actually shift? Where do you take? How do you stem the tide, the destructive tide? Well, John Gottman has something to say, but I actually prefer what Stephen Tosney recommends. He says we should give feedback rather than criticism. How can we tell the difference? But before we do that, he has an interesting way. How can you tell if you are critical? Many of us would determine that we are not critical people, we are nice people, but you'll be shocked at how critical we are. And one of the ways, he says, you are likely to be the last to know whether or not you're a critical person. It says here, you're likely to be the last to know. As the joke goes, I give feedback, you're critical. I'm firm, you're stubborn. I'm flexible, you're wishy-washy. I'm in touch with my feelings, you're hysterical. In other words, many of us tend to see ourselves and judge ourselves by our intentions. In our head, we justify almost anything and everything that we do. But when it comes to other people, we judge them by their actions and their words. And that is a major difference. You know, if I am late, it's because of some environmental factor, the traffic, my car broke down, or something that is external to us. But when somebody else is late, it is because they have no respect for time, and we assault their character or make a judgment on them. So be very careful. Be very careful before you start pointing your fingers. Remember, when you point a finger, there's several more pointing back at you. Now, there is another way we can tell if we're critical. And I want to jump back over to Stephen as he says, if someone tells you you're critical, you probably are. But there is even a better way to tell. Think of what you automatically say to yourself if you drop something or make a mistake. Critical people tend to typically think, oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I'm just a jerk. Or just curse or sigh in disgust. If you do that to yourself, you most likely do it to others as well. Boy, that is a sober one. That's a sober one. So check your internal talk. Check what you say to yourself when you make mistakes. And if you are judging yourself harshly, if you're being critical of yourself, then you're more than likely very critical of others. Now, what can we do? Because we must be solution focused. Let me give you a couple of points. Stephen Stosny talks about criticism versus feedback. He says that criticism focuses on what is wrong. Why can't you pay attention to the bills? Oh, come on! Why are you always so late with the bills? And feedback would focus on ways to improve. So one dwells on wrong things, what is wrong, and the other focuses on not just what is wrong, but how to improve. Let's go over the bills together. Criticism implies the worst about the other person's personality. You're so stubborn, you're so lazy, you're an idiot, why you're so nasty. Whereas feedback is about the behavior, not the personality, not the core of the person. So we will say, can we start sorting the bills together, according to the due date? So it's more, again, solution focused. Criticism devalues, it undermines, it belittles people. I guess you're just not smart enough to do this. That sounds to me bordering on contempt. Where feedback encourages, I know you have a lot on your plate, but I'm pretty sure we can get this done together. Now, criticism always lay blame. It's the fault of the other person. It is why this has happened. Whereas feedback focuses on the future. We can get out of this mess if we both give up a few things. What do you think? So it's a solution focus. Criticism attempts control. Feedback gives autonomy. Criticism is coercive. It is controlling. Feedback is about cooperation. Okay? Now, warning, flash. All right. If you are angry or resentful, any feedback, remember, if you have these emotions, anger, resentment, and you're trying to give feedback, guess what? It will be heard as criticism. Why? Simply because no matter how you put it, the people respond to your tone, your emotion, not your intention. They're hearing the tonality of your voice, the way you're coming over. They're seeing the micro expressions on your face. So it's best to regulate your anger or resentment before you try to give feedback. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. If you're in a situation, a relationship, a marriage that is laden with criticism, I suggest that you start reframing and looking at things and having a bit of a compassion. Look beyond the fault and see the need of the person. All right, let me hear what you have to say. Are you a victim of criticism? Put your comments in the comment section below. And if you would like some support in the situation that you're in, if you've locked horns, if you are in a high conflict, and you really want to regenerate and restore the love that you once had, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll be delighted to support and help you. Talk to you. See you in the next video.